Hi there, hope you're having a great day so far. Now, I've got a question for you. Have you ever heard of loose parts play before? No? Well, me neither. But not to worry, we're actually here today with our special guest, international keynote speaker, innovator, and educator, Lukas Ritson from Wearthy, basically just to learn all about it and its many benefits. Now, the phrase respect for nature is his ultimate philosophy and the ultimate philosophy of Lukas's work. Now, his company, Wearthy, are the #1 advocates of championing sustainability by creating natural play opportunities that ignite creativity and curiosity in children. And they're pretty much the experts and the pioneers of delivering sustainable and a natural approach to how early childhood education centres, that being your kindergartens, your preschools, the daycares, the childcare centres that you're dropping off your kids at, basically how they operate and deliver education services and outdoor learning and play opportunities to children. So thanks for joining us today, Lukas. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for such a generous introduction.
Well, just speaking the truth. Now, this conversation today, we're going to dig deep into the play technique coined as loose parts play. But first, I'd love to have a quick chat to you on the topic of sustainability. I think it's really important and something that I'm deeply passionate about. Now, your, I guess, the way that you guys operate is a very unique approach. Nonetheless, it's really needed more than ever during the times of climate change, and now that we have an even greater focus on our environment overall. So in your opinion, I'd love to know initially, why do you think it's so important that we adapted a culture around sustainability for young children, and equally for them to have exposure to it from a young age?
Yeah, very good question. It comes down to, nature's always been the provider for us. It's giving us every element and every experience we've ever needed to evolve and grow as people.
Yeah.
And in the modern times, we're tending to sway away from that. We're tending to sway indoors. We're tending to jump on front of screens. And we're just moving away from what has fulfilled us internally, spiritually, socially, since the dawn of time, essentially. So that's why it's so important to develop these skills really early on. And it is a skill to do it, but also it's an innate response. So what I mean by that is I do a talk saying that you can't have environmental sustainability with an environmental practice. What I mean by that, first and foremost, we have to make it a social practice. One of fulfillment, one of accomplishment, one of experience, and those sensory experiences that we had as children, climbing in the dirt, in the mud. And then when we're fulfilled in a space, our innate internal response is to care for the thing that cares for us. And then therefore we've got this beautiful loop. We're being fulfilled, our well-being, our grounding, and then the reaction is to care. It's not about going, hey, let's go compost. Hey, let's go recycle. It's about creating experience in nature. So it's a response.
Are you saying that there's like a give and take? Is that and educating children on that, or not? Did I miss the point? Maybe I don't know.
No. That's exactly right. Like nature provides for us, and then our response is to care for it.
Yes.
If we make that a chore and say, hey, let's go recycle, the child's like, why? They go, oh, because it's important to care for nature.
Yeah.
You imagine a 4-year-old saying, where's nature? Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
What's in it? Everything. So instead of making it, it needs to be tangible. I need to touch it. I need to feel it. And I need to experience it. I can't just care for something I can't see.
Yep. And I guess the idea of integrating sustainability into our daily lives in this environmental, in this economic climate, is really a luxury for many at the moment, and maybe one that not so many that I guess lower income households and potentially even some middle income households at the moment, provided what we're sort of living through at the moment with COVID-19, it is maybe something that is maybe coined and maybe looked at as a luxury. So I'd love to understand from your perspective, what tips can you offer to families that are potentially in either of those scenarios, and
Yeah.
that basically can sort of help them sort of integrate and introduce the idea of sustainability to children.
Yeah. And just as a quick overview, always think of it in the pillars of sustainability. So we've got environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability. So we need to have a balance between those pillars to have sustainable development.
Yeah.
If we focus too heavily on one of those pillars, like if we focus too heavily on economics, our social services collapse and our environmental practices fall because all of our energy is going there, and you can't have sustainable growth. So I want parents not to be so strict and harsh on themselves. Like I don't have the resources to build a garden right now. But what we do have is the resources for that social experience in nature a lot of time, even if it is just using what you've got, sitting on the grass outside. And then from an economic standpoint, there's good opportunity to actually make some money with your sustainable practices in recycling bottles, and starting that compost heap that then you can start a garden with. So there is opportunities if we break it down into social, environmental, and economic. So there is real diversity and opportunity for families to explore and deepen their sustainable practices at this point in time.
Okay, well, that's food for thought. Now, in your line of work, you have contributed to tens of thousands of children feeling supported, challenged, connected, and confident, which are all critically important. I'd love to know from your perspective what actually inspires you personally to want to make generational change and to empower our future leaders with all of these important stuff that you write and speak about, which is compassion, it's resilience, and just respect for our planet.
Yeah, it comes back to my own experience as a child, and what fulfilled me was those little glimpses of experience. And I didn't have a great schooling, as a lot of people can relate, and I just wasn't quite the fit. So if I can contribute to children's learning and growth now, and really focus on those primary schools of compassion, resilience, accomplishment, love and respect, if we can forge them, I believe the person is strong enough and resilient enough to forge ahead in any circumstance. So my experience motivates me. And then becoming a father, it might be a weird protected father thing, but I want to create a beautiful world for my children to live in. And I want to also have a really real conversation with them when they're older, saying, well, I really tried to make the world better, and then model that to them.
Yeah. I think, as you mentioned in before, when you think about it, the pillars of sustainability and what we are leaving for our children and their children's children and generations to come, it's not just going to be just an economic that we've provided you a house and provided you with the education. It's everything else that we really need to be thinking about. And
Yeah.
sort of, I always say, sort of like, zooming out of our bubble a little bit and looking into the bubble of our life, and sort of, looking into it to sort of think holistically overall, really, what are we sort of providing for our kids? And I think this is something that's really good food for thought.
Yeah.
Now, we
100%.
published your article titled Piecing Together Play. Now, for someone who hasn't read the article, can you give us a little bit of an overview what it's about, and just tell us what inspired you to write it?
It's a piece, we're advocates of play. If we can inform parents as well to get out and play, so and use the resources they have, because that's sustainability. That's why we just want to produce the content that inspires parents and give them the information they need. We all know, and we've heard it time and time again, there was no manual for that child when they were born. So let's give them the content so they can kind of sneak a few pages back out of that manual and give them the tools they need to support their children as best they can.
Yep. It's a great article, and we'll have a link in the introduction paragraph so everyone can have a squiz and have a good read to it. And we're hearing a lot about loose parts play lately. Can you actually tell us really what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the bones of that article, to answer your last question, not just talk about the why. It's informing parents of loose parts and what they are and why they want them. But as an overview, we all know what a loose part is already. we all have had those conversations as parents about buying your child the new toy and they play with the box.
Yes.
Loose parts are essentially the box over and over and over again in diverse elements that can provide learning and out of the box thinking. So for example, would be like boxes, pipes, ropes, even anything that has a non-prescribed use or that can be multiple use. And your listeners probably be familiar with the term open-ended. There's a lot of debate in the play work world. Are they open-ended? Are they not? Because it's intended as a child wants it.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, it's the box of your world that provide a resource for diversity in play.
Yep. And I'd like to read a small paragraph from the article, which I think really gives great context to what you're saying. And for anyone that is new to the concept of what loose parts play is. So here we go. This is quoting you. And I think it does, as mentioned, explains it really well. So here we go. It's not pretty. Loose parts play can look like the Tupperware cupboard and the recycling bin had a wrestling match and everyone lost. Everyone except the child contently playing in the delightful mess that she or he started. Loose parts play is the type of chaos that children are drawn to, and our role is to support it the best way we can. So I think that is absolutely fantastic. So in your view, how do you think children actually benefit from loose parts play?
So all we need to do is reflect on the experience children are having now. There's like over a 40% drop in play in one generation. We've seen over like 60%
did you say 40%? Did you say 40?
Yeah, drop 40 in outdoor play.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, and the free reign of travel in only a few generations, it's right at that cusp between generations. But we've gone from about a kilometre of free play in our suburbs and in our neighbourhoods to 50 to 70 metres of free play. So where are those learning experiences coming from that we had as children? And it's not about nostalgia. We've got to put the fork in that now. It's not like, hey, when we were kids, it was fun. No. When we were kids, we were doing what we needed to feel fulfilled. We were doing the things that created the learning to move forward. We had that free play. And if we reflect on that, children aren't getting free play anymore. We've got really short time frames. We go to a park, it's climb here, slide here. I'm on it for 3 minutes and I've accomplished everything. So where is the challenge? So if we look at what children are exposed to, okay, what's the opposite of that? Let's give them stuff that they can completely change. Let's give them the stuff that they can completely have ownership over it and use how they want, that's not prescribed. So that's essentially what loose parts, that's the benefit of it. And also it's not this, when we give a child a resource, you think it's a finite resource. It's like the truck can be used as a truck, but we want infinite learners and offer the framing so they're interested and inspired learners forever, not just in that resource that they've got that's going to stop. So my goal is to create an infinite learner, not a finite one that's about a task. Mm-hmm. And that's what comes down to. And nothing commands our full attention more than something we're interested in. And when it comes down to using a loose part, I'm using it how I want it to be used. So I might be sawing wood. I might be building a cubby to build to have some independence away from my parent telling me what to do all the time. And those moments are the things we remember as a child, not the screen.
Yes. So these, and correct me if I'm wrong. So what I'm hearing is that these are the experiences that are invoking the development of creativity, the development of lateral thinking, and these are the skills that all children are going to need in years to come for the jobs in the future which they will be applying for. And that, yeah. I mean, there was a really interesting sort of study done not too long ago by Dell, and a large percentage of jobs in the future that our children will be applying for haven't even been created yet, because obviously the world is creating is moving so fast with the development of technology, etc. So what loose parts play is doing, this is a question, is what Loose
Yep.
Parts Play is doing, is helping them develop these skills in lateral thinking and creativity to help them develop the skills that they will need for those jobs later on in life. Was that what it is?
Yeah, 100%. And when you think of the jobs, just to extend on your point about that, Dell, a lot of our jobs now are being automated. So if there's a task in the future that can be automated, it will be automated.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need to think like automation in linear lines. We need to think creatively outside of that. So then we can fit in, and it makes us more employable in the future.
Yep.
Not
100%.
think linearly. Yeah.
Here's another paragraph, which I think is great as well. So, quoting you, this type of play inspires innovation and creativity, improves concentration and problem-solving skills, develops social and emotional thinking, and empowers children to thrive in a versatile environment that they have complete ownership of. Well, when you state it like that, realistically, this is something that all kids really should be doing and ensuring that it's a big part of their childhood, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And it's just kind of like the rite of passage. We don't have to think back far to be like the cubbies of the neighborhood. If you ask anyone to think about where they played as a child, there's probably a tree, and it was probably the place behind their house. It was probably the place next to the park. And now it's just the fear of the unknown, the fear of fear. Is really hindering our children's experience.
I'm really just shocked what you mentioned before about the 40% reduction in kids' playtime. Can you just speak to that a little bit more? And I'd love to understand how you think that, I guess, Loose Parts Play can help increase this and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So the 40%, I think that's enormous.
Well, average. There was a research recently came out. Well, not that recently, a few years ago. So it's probably increased since then. An average of 2.5 hours of screen time a day for early primary school. I forget the exact age, but it's early primary school. It's 2.5 hours of screen time a day. Now, if you're in here we are in Brisbane. We've got an average of 30-minute transit time between our home and care. And then about 80% of the day is spent outside the home in care. Like if you start at 6:30 to 5, the child's in care for the majority of the day. I think it's around more like, I've got a chart I can share with you and put in the links. But then you've got the functioning time. You've got, on top of the transit time, you've got dinner time, you've got bath time, you've got story time, and then all of a sudden, where is that 2.9 hours of screen time coming? Where's the social interaction? Where's the freedom? We need to learn through our senses to develop an understanding of our place in the world. We say we need to activate our physiology. We need to activate our bodies for our minds. We need to activate our bodies for our well-being. Just if you do exercise straight after school, you're going to burn off cortisol, which is a stress hormone.
Yep.
In the body for a primary school student, especially. It's been sitting a long time. So therefore, we've used the physiology for their well-being.
Yep.
And that's where Loose Parts comes in, because it demands our full attention. We're exercising that muscle. Mm-hmm. We're exercising our concentration muscle. And then when we're doing something for ourselves, we go through, we feel safe and secure. We find and develop innate skills, just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then we get to accomplishment / self-fulfillment.
Yep.
When we have accomplishment in our play, we get self-fulfillment. Therefore, I'm framing through my physiology that I am control of my well-being. Mm-hmm. I'm in control of how I feel, and we're framing that through play. If we don't frame it through play and we don't end up with a self-fulfillment model, we'll end up with an external fulfillment model. That's where food comes in. And then in later years, it comes into alcohol, drug abuse, sex, anything to get that acknowledgement, fulfillment, chemicals in the body. So that's how important it is. And that's why I'm such an advocate of it. And that's why I'm just like, this stuff needs to happen now. It's the first 5 years. We've got to create the learning experiences and the play experience now that they're framing for their whole lives. Because you're turning on, play therapists call it turning on switches. You have to turn on the switches for them to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the difference between indoor and outdoor play, loose parts play then? Because is loose parts play just for indoors or not? Is there a difference?
No, it's indoor outdoors, like the old cubby fort that we've all done on the house. As simple as the creating a secluded place with a sheet across the table. And then all of a sudden they're finding these random things that end up being for example, what have my kids got at the moment? A lot of sticks are coming in at the moment, actually. We're going through a stick phase. But the sticks aren't sticks. They obviously go to the standard swords, but then they're flowers and they're put in vases, but they're only sticks, but in their world. And generally, inside, outdoor, the value's the same. The scale. There's certain things like water and mud are loose parts as well. So you don't want those inside in a lot of houses, so keep them out. And just think, we need to offer diversity in experience. There's real perks to being able to have secluded, weather-resistant indoor play. I'm just pointing to my lounge room. And there's also benefits to going outside and doing things that you can only do outside. The broader the play experience, the broader the learning experience. And that's how we find and develop innate skills. Hey, I really like this intricate work. Hey, and this is when gender roles come into it as well, or gender biases, or tendency for girls to gravitate towards more intricate, fine motor skills that develop and that support social interaction. And the boys are going to go outside and use the blunter tools, as my friends call it, like the blunter social tools. So we're going to tackle, we're going to lift stuff, we're going to smash stuff. The girls are using their fine skills. The boys are using their hammers socially as well.
I remember
so if you've got diversity, the better.
I remember making mud pies, actually. That was something that stuck with me. And there's a particular tree at the front of my parents' house that, anyway, and I remember picking the red berries from it and actually putting it into the mud pies. And it's one of those things that's just stayed with me for life. It's incredible how these things really do innately sort of just imprint on,
amazing author, like parents should go check out. Her name's Angela Hanscom. She's got an amazing book called Balanced and Barefoot. And it's about occupational therapy from a nature play standpoint.
Oh, wow.
It's a beautiful, beautiful read. She's got it opened all across the state. She's got a company called Timbernook. They're amazing.
What's her name again?
It's like Angela Hanscom.
Cool. All right. We'll definitely have to look
We'll put it in the notes. We can put a link there. She's awesome.
Yes, definitely. And you've mentioned it and you touched on it really briefly before about, I guess, open-ended play experiences. So do you see that that loose parts play does provide an open-ended play experience for kids? And if so, how do you think that actually does provide that? Yeah.
So what it offers is that a child can come back to it time and time again. It can be anything.
Yep.
Instead of, the toy truck that sits on the shelf. Sorry to come back to the toy truck again, but I'm not against toy trucks. My son's got toy trucks. But it offers diversity once again. And I do see it as, I'm from the camp that I do see it as open-ended as well. So support the child, give them the time, and they win.
Yeah. Cool. This is another question I wanted to ask you as well. The topic of risky play has risen to the surface in recent years, and this is more in the the early education space. But it is really it's necessary and critical for every child's early education and their development. For anyone that hasn't really heard and or defined in their mind what risky play is, could you please just define that? And also, how do you see the correlation between loose parts play and risky play in the outdoor play scenario?
Yeah. So the definition from the early years is risks are possible to negotiate and suitable for their purpose.
Yep.
And that's very broad. If we look at different, and a hazard, because we've got to look at them conjointly, because as adults and doing risk assessments at work, we're used to seeing the danger. But from an education standpoint, the risks are possible to negotiate and suitable for the purpose. So it's not something to be avoided. A hazard from the early years learning framework is something that inherently dangerous that needs to be remedied straight away.
Yep.
So something that will cause an injury, that's something that might. Now, if we put our analytical hats on and we think of the benefit of the play first. So, for example, something everyone can relate to is the climbing frames. Let's look at the benefit of a climbing frame. They get gross motor skills, they get social interacting, they get accomplishment. The list can go on and on. Write that down in a column. And now look at the risk. The risk, may the child fall? Yes, they could fall.
Yep.
Is there soft fall? Yeah, there's soft fall. So the child could fall onto the ground or the plank. Now, am I going to deprive the child of all of that developmentally beneficial outcome for the something that might happen that isn't severe? No. If there's broken planks or there's no soft fall or something can tip over or there's splinters, if a child engages with that, they're going to get hurt. No, I don't care about your benefit right now. I'm going to keep you safe first and foremost. So I invite you to think about that. It's risk versus benefit all the time. And then it's in the context of loose parts, there is a lot of destruction. You know, we're little scientists as children. We want to break things down so we can understand how it works. And guess what? We do tend to try to put it back together again. You know, the child dropping an egg on the floor isn't always an accident. It's an experiment.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And once again, we need tangible sight, touch, feel experiences to get that information into our body. As children, we don't have the broad concept to say, talk in theory. It needs to be touching. And that's what Loose Parts does. So
when you're designing the outdoor play centres for the early education centres, is it right throughout Australia? Is it just in Queensland that you guys do it?
Yep, right across Australia. We've consulted overseas as well. We did the first Indigenous school in Australia. We went and did a renovation for them in Northern Territory, which we were honoured to do. But great. What I see from doing these constructions everywhere, the similarity in challenge that children face today. We're facing the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're from a low socioeconomic, high socioeconomic area. We're facing the same challenges.
Yeah. But what do you incorporate into those outdoor play scenarios that a parent would then identify as being that's something that is in that play environment that would help children develop these skills around risky play? Is it, for example, having a big molded rock? Is it, as you said, the climbing? Like, what else do you put and design into the outdoor play centres? The parents, once that they see them after this chat today, would identify and just go, yep. That's there for that reason.
Simply put, you want it to be a real experience. You don't want it to be a replica of a real experience. What I mean by that is, what's the sensory benefit of a real rock and overcoming the challenge and risk of dealing with a real rock that's hard? Real rock that's hard is real, and I'm not going to negotiate it as such. A rubber rock is a piece of rubber. And I'm not going to engage it in the same way. It's not going to give me the same sensory feedback. And I'm not going to deal with it in a real experience type of way. Yeah. So look for the place with the rocks. Look for the place with the logs. Look for the place with the dirt. Because we got to learn through our senses. I use a model based on risk and play, which creates diversity. And it's based on research from a Polish pedagogue, and it's based on playing at height. You want to be playing at height. It helps with our emotional regulation and accomplishment. We want secluded play. Look for this, and you can create this in your house as well. Create secluded play because it's emotional resilience and independence. Use of tools, sticks and rocks. We're talking primal tools before we get to the hammers and rocks and drills and all that fun stuff. We want to be, where am I? height. Rough and tumble play is actually really important, but a bit hard to see as you're walking around the tour, the childcare centre doing a tour. But supporting that at home is really important. And then dangerous elements that could cause injury, and playing at speed. So playing at speed, gross motor, spatial perception, use of tools, gross motor skills and fine motor skills, problem solving. So it just creates diversity in learning experience. But as a parent, just look for what is real, please.
Yep. And this is a technique that is developed across all sort of pedagogies, and irrespective if it's Reggio Emilia or Montessori, etc. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. They all touch on it, even if you get into like more abstract things like there's Janusz Korczak pedagogy from, he was what's a child's doctor called? Pediatrician.
Yep.
In Poland, and he ran an orphanage for children, and him and his children got taken to the gas chambers during World War II.
Oh, wow.
And he went with the children, but he had his own theories, and that they're beautiful. It's all very social based, and so check out that. But I talk of these things and these topics, and I can take a topic from, say, Reggio, and mention it to Montessori, and I won't say the name, and then they're all of a sudden saying, "Oh, that's really good. Yeah, I'm going to do that." And then likewise, so you can take Montessori applications and their benefit, but I just don't name it because all of a sudden the walls go up and say, "Oh, well, no, we're in this camp over here, and I'm not a part of that camp, so I can't use their tools."
So
use all the tools.
So saying, digesting this, I guess, for parents listening, these are different play techniques that different early education centres develop and teach in the pedagogy when they're teaching your children. Reggio Emilia, as an example, is a play-based technique, and Montessori, once again, So what we're saying is that irrespective of what the technique is, everybody sort of takes from each other. Is that right?
Yeah, I think when it comes to children, and for the parents listening, one tool in your toolbox can't work on all children.
Yeah.
Get your toolbox and fill it up with every single tool you can find, because the child today is not the child tomorrow.
Yes.
So you might not need a tool, but then you've come across, hey, I know how to best support my child with that tool now.
Yes.
So why deprive yourself of it?
Yeah. There's another quote of yours, which, sorry, continue, sorry.
No, you go. No.
No, I was just going to quote one of your quotes, which I think is fantastic. This is quoting you. Children are so capable. Instead of be careful, give them the information that points out the hazard for them to make an informed decision to navigate their environment. So I think this is a really great point. Is there anything that you'd like to expand on that at all?
Yeah, just to understand why we don't say be careful all the time is because the physiological response for excitement is a hair away from our physiological response to fear.
Yep.
So our concentration, our heart rate, our oxygen levels, the chemicals that are happening in our body are all very similar. Yep. The thing that turns it from excitement to fear is the framing. So I could be climbing a tree, little Jack 5-year-old climbing the tree. I'm like, I'm killing it here. This is exciting. I can do it. How good is this? I've got a bit of accomplishment. And all of a sudden from downstairs you hear, be careful. And he's like, whoa, I thought I was killing it. And all of a sudden now I'm scared.
Yep.
So
well, I mean, how can parents support their children during loose parts play? Perfect.
So go back to the tree analogy because we can all relate to it. Instead of saying be careful, point out the hazard. A hazard can be defined from a playwork standpoint is something that the child doesn't see that can cause an injury. So, for example, if you're climbing a tree, the child doesn't see the hazard of the thin branch not holding their weight.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, the thin branches won't hold your weight. Give them the information they need to make an informed decision.
Okay.
The children climbing on rocks. Hey, the rocks are slippery when there's sand on them. You're giving them the data that they need to have that accomplishment, to have that fulfillment. And you're teaching them to manage the risk for themselves. You imagine if a child never experienced to say what's a risk and what's a hazard for themselves through the sensory experience, they're going to become that teenager. And all of a sudden we say, act like an adult. And they're saying, well, you've made every choice for me up until now. Why are you throwing it back on me all of a sudden? And I haven't had the experience to manage that for myself.
So the best way we can support a child during their loose parts play is to give them the information which is relevant for them to be able to
Yes.
internalize and think to themselves, okay, so this is the scenario, and if I do this, this may happen. So it's to give them that information for them to internalize it and to create that rational thinking. Is that right?
Yeah. If I say be careful, don't hit, be careful of hitting your fingers with the hammer. If I've got holding a nail and I've got a hammer about to hit it, I'm pretty aware that if I hit my finger, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
So you can offer that feedback as well, but a lot of time they'll look at you like, thanks for that. Who's this? Also, just take a reflection of like, who's this information for?
Yes.
A great framing I heard recently from a guy named Teacher Tom. He was saying that the Jaws music starts when parents start to engage in risky play. Dun it, dun it, dun it, dun it. So when that music starts to play, pause, the power of the pause, take a breath, and give them the information they need to be fulfilled and have a childhood experience they deserve.
Well, this is $1 million question now. How can parents bring more loose parts play into their children's lives?
Yeah. So the top two things that hinder play are time and permission. So first and foremost, don't worry about the loose parts. Allocate some time and a minimum of 45 minutes. What we were saying earlier about that play is dropped that much because we're not allowing the time, because we're just filling it full of extracurricular stuff that we want, that we're doing for them.
Yeah.
We are doing for them. Give them the space, honor their childhood experience, and allow them the time to do what they want. Because what they want is what they need at that time. If I need to be by myself, I've got a nice secluded space to go to. So for parents out there, find an opportunity to create a secluded place. So child is constantly being told what to do and they need to develop that. Kind of have a little exhale. And do you know what? It will help you as well. You will give yourself permission to exhale. So it's great for the relationship. Create the space and time. Don't feel like you have to be right on top of the child. Take a step back. And the best way to do it and honor that time is by modeling it. So instead of flicking through your phone or having the TV on or tidying up, sit and do something for yourself at that time.
Oh, what a really great point.
Just allow that time as a first and foremost, and then let everything flow after that. You know, offer the resources, do the boxes, do the pans, do the colanders. And another thing to remember is just the power of the plonk. The plonk, not the wine, the power of that wine. The power of the plonk is to be able to just leave some items in a play area that don't belong there, that don't make sense. Plonk and leave it.
Yeah.
And the children will come and be like, what's this doing here? You're like, I don't know. What is it doing here? What's it for? I don't know.
How wonderful.
The power of I don't know is
their minds
really
ticking and what's this and what can I do with this? And so give them the opportunity to be bored and 100%. Create the space and the time in their life to allow them to be bored, to be able to then develop the skills and the ability to develop their creativity. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, 100%. And you imagine how much a child is dictated to in a day. You know, get your shoes. Where's your other sock? You know, get home. We do bedtime. Get up the table. Eat your dinner. Go to bed. And then, when they ask a question, we feel like, oh, I should know this. I've got to know the answer. The power of I don't know. First and foremost, we want to feel significant. All people want to feel significant. So let the child feel significant. I see you have found something there. I've let them know that I've seen them. They are significant. I notice them and they're doing something. I haven't prescribed it.
Yeah.
Try that.
Well, look, you've shared so much information for us today and it's all been brilliant. How would you summarize your key points from the chat today that you really want a parent to walk away and have their key takeaway points?
That's a good question. And as everyone listening could work out, I do get passionate and I could talk about this for
That's a good thing.
a lot of hours. But
It's your life's work, that's why.
100%. I just think of the childhood experience you would want as a parent, what you would want your child to have, the experiences that you had as a child that you held in high esteem. I bet you it wasn't going to do all the extra stuff. It was those little moments between. One of my wife's favorite things was growing up was every week they would wash the car together as a family. It's these simple experiences that come down to bonding, that come down to the social interaction, the depth, the care, the love. And that's all it comes down to. It's having abundance of love and allowing yourself to be vulnerable with your child, and you're teaching them to do the same. The Wearthy name came about from inspired by Brené Brown's power of vulnerability, because without vulnerability, we have no creativity. Without vulnerability, we can't grow. We don't allow ourselves to think.
Yep.
And it really stunts us. So Wearthy is about every child's right to be unique, to be confident, to be loved.
Yeah.
And that's all it comes down to.
Well, I think we both agree that all children deserve a happy, memorable, adventurous, childhood, really filled with imagination, excitement and play. And there's just been so much in this chat today. I'm so grateful for your time. If parents have got any other questions, they want to reach out to you in the future, whereabouts can they find you?
Head over to wearthy.co. And also Wearthy on Wearthy. It's earthy with a W in front. And head over to Facebook. We're on Instagram. And also there is these articles and free resources for educators on our page as well. But if you're coming up against any challenges specifically in your world, email us. It will get passed on and we can push you in the right direction.
Great.
We don't have all the answers, and that's okay.
What was that?
Said we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. But we can hopefully point you in the direction.
Yeah. I really love this chat and really hope for another one, and hopefully in the not too distant future. Take care.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you.
Bye.
Much love.
Bye.